Hey, change makers and visionaries. This is Reimagining Community, where we dive deep into the stories of leaders who are reshaping the world, one community at a time. I'm your host, Garland Fuller, and every episode is a radical act of connection. We're not just talking about change, we're breaking down how real people are creating it right here, right now. This podcast is more than conversations. It's a bridge where we are sharing stories that offer insight and inspiration. Whether you're an entrepreneur, consultant, volunteer, artist, or an organizational leader, this is your space to listen and learn. This is your call to create impact in the communities you hold dear and that hold you up. Let's reimagine what's possible together. Welcome to Reimagining Community. I am so happy to have you here today, Kim Brown. I feel like this is going to be I'm just going to give you so much love on this. I'm just going to tell you that out the gate because I don't know that I would be doing a podcast like this today if it weren't for the experience that you and I have had over the past 4 years with AAREP LA, AAREP, African American Real Estate Professionals, Los Angeles. We are going to talk about all things, I'd say, personal, professional, sprinkle, of course, some AAREP in there. This podcast is really my love letter to doing community, being in community with people, enjoying the, I'd say, fruits of service and being a servant leader. Don't think I could kick this off without having you on because you have embodied so much of that. And I've enjoyed working with you so much. So we're just going to get started. I can read your bio. You're that girl, okay? You are that girl. She is currently managing partner at Housing Impact Partners. She's extensive career in commercial real estate, extensive career in property management, brokerage, all the things. Check out her LinkedIn bio for the creds. But I'm excited to have you on today.
Garland, this is really just an extension of a conversation that you and I have every single day. And I am delighted to be here. I want to pause for a moment just because you and I cross-pollinate on so many levels. And so there's so many nuggets that we've shared, we've grown, we've developed over the past 4 years. Just excited to share in this conversation. So thank you for having me this morning. Excited to support you in your venture here, which is an extension of the things that we do, the things that we are about, the community building aspect of AAREP LA. So I'm ready.
Okay. So we're gonna go back in time a little bit because I know that community has been a part of your world since before this. You're quite activated in your local community. You've also just been involved within commercial real estate. If you can go back to your earliest memory of how community came into your life and how does it inform like who you are today and how you think about what you do today?
I love this question because it's not just a tell us who you are real estate question, and it allows folks to get a glimpse into some things that other facets, other groups in my life are fully aware of. And so this moment isn't just a sudden burst on the scene. And no, this has been a lifelong journey leading up to this point. And so right now I'm in a moment of introspection. And so I can see every facet of my life, particularly my professional life, leading up to this moment. And we'll talk about this moment, I'm sure, in the context of this conversation. But what I will say is I have always, even before I knew it, I have always been a mobilizer, a galvanizer, and a leader. If there were growing up, I was always pulling together okay, you're going to tap dance. I'm going to twirl the baton. We're going to put on a show. Grew up in South Central, very Mayberry-like back in the day. We probably don't have enough time in this conversation to talk about what I talk about around that community in particular. I will say fast forward as a mom, always class mom, always team mom, always coordinating, always leading, always founding organization. I was a founding member of a board member of like Jack and Jill America when my daughter was young here in Long Beach and other communities. During 2020, I'm galvanizing, I'm pulling 200 people 400 people in the street, the city council people across these various communities, the mayors across these various communities know me as a civic leader, as a I was once deputized community liaison by a particular elected official just to come to those meetings. So leadership, servant leadership, serving the people has always been, I didn't even know it, but it's always been a big part of who I am. And galvanizing folks and pulling folks together, it just comes naturally to me. And so I've recognized that at this moment in time, where we are at in communities, in commercial real estate, politically, everything, I'm prepared because of all of those experiences throughout my life. And that's just on the personal front.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about South LA and Mayberry because I don't think people would ever put those two together, but I think when you are a Black person in Los Angeles and you've had a whole different experience within a community that is very just close to your heart, you have to talk about what that experience was like growing up because I think South LA gets a bad rap or people just say stuff and you're just like, but that's not the South LA I know. And that's not the South LA I grew up in. And so I want you to talk about it because I think it's a big part of why you do what you do today.
It is indeed. And what I often say is listen, our communities have been defined by other people, right? And that's just since the beginning of time, right? And so if you look back in the 50s when discriminatory practices were in place, Black people couldn't live past Main Street, which essentially is the 110 freeway. So my parents were when that barrier was eased, were one of the first Black families to move into our community, at least. And so they describe that our block, for example, was primarily Caucasian, primarily Jewish. Within 1 year, that changed. Enter Black families moving west. And so when we were growing up, so there's some history there. And then also for me, my parents bought their home in 1962. My mother will be 92 next month. My father
Wow.
passed about 5 years ago. My mother still lives in that very same home. And so our family has grown up with this legacy around this home. A lot of people in our community, in our quadrant is what we call it, which is defined by a certain borders of major intersections. A lot of folks, a lot of their parents are still in, or their second generation or even third generation, still in those homes. I run into people all the time. I ran into Areva Martin, her husband, Ernest Martin, a lawyer prominent lawyer here in the city, got to talking week before last. He's, oh, I grew up off. I'm like, my God, we grew up 3 blocks from each other. The rich history in these communities doesn't get talked about. And so what we're finding, if you grew up in South LA, Compton, Watts, in the 60s and 70s, even pre the crack epidemic, you grew up in a very nuclear, folks are proud, right? A very Mayberry-ish, and hate to even define it by that, by using other terms, but nevertheless, just very structured, very healthy, very holistic, sustaining environment.
Yeah.
And that's rich, and that's what shapes me.
You have had an opportunity to take on leadership roles in the past, I'd say 30 plus years. Like, how has your leadership changed over time? How have you matured, grown, developed? We used those words earlier in terms of how you even see what is, how do you define yourself in terms of your way of going about doing things?
Oh my goodness, that is a fantastic question. And I will say that I've seen the evolution of my growth, particularly in the past 2 years. And again, you get to a certain age and you can look back on your journey through a certain lens and you see it all. Through AAREP LA, the African American Real Estate Professionals, we're the Los Angeles chapter. Little plug, we're about a dozen chapters nationally, started in New York over 35 years ago. LA chapter officially started about 11 years ago, but nevertheless, current president of the Los Angeles chapter. What essentially happened is that we started as somewhat of a network group. We're an industry trade organization, but we started very small. There weren't as many Black professionals in the industry when we started the organization. There's been an explosion in the past 5 years. What that explosion represents is a ton of opportunities around, particularly around the housing space. And so what I'm going somewhere with this, trust me. With housing and multifamily, and throughout my career, we've always labeled it multifamily. Housing, in my view, is something different. Housing disproportionately affects people of color, Black and brown people. Housing inequity, I should say, disproportionately affects people of color. Right now in this city, the second largest city in the country, South LA, all is the largest, as defined by CBRE, is the largest submarket out of the 20 submarkets in the city. Some of that is systemic just because it was historically overlooked and now it is seen, it is viewed upon by external investment and private equity institutional as the land of milk and honey because it's untouched. And so what I've seen and what I've experienced is an outpouring, a surge in investment in our historically overlooked communities. What that's done for me is it's allowed me, I've had a number of people come into my life, personally and professionally. What it's allowed me is to see, oh my God, wait, this organization, and we're hearing from the community, I quote, we need you, AAREP, right? It became apparent to me, wait a minute, we have become a vital force. The Los Angeles Sentinel did an article, and thank you, Bakewells, a couple weeks ago, and they defined our organization as a vital force. It's become that. And so that has shaped my leadership in how, one, we are serving Black professionals in providing, I call it space and opportunity for Black professionals to thrive. But two, as an industry trade org, our advocacy, our representation, we're in a crisis right now in the city as it relates to housing disproportionately affecting Black and brown people of color. We've got a number of elected officials who are now in place. We've got 7 Black mayors on a 25-mile radius, right? And so we've got a convergence of things. We've got these 4 mega events on the horizon, including the Olympics. AAREP, my leadership has happened to me. It's just been how all of those forces have converged and how naturally AAREP has become an integral part of the discussion with the goals of being an integral part of the solution. And so I've been thrust into the center of that.
Yeah, no, I remember when we had these conversations about it's the like aligning of the stars, like all these things happening at the same time and feeling like, okay, like we need to make this a thing. And that's why I think I've enjoyed working with you so much because I see the vision of this is the perfect alignment of so many things. And how can we really amplify? How can we really make this a movement? How can we get people engaged? And I think we both do it because we enjoy the people. I think we also both do it because we see that there's an opportunity to let's do this in a really big way. I know myself when I have been learning about all of these things that have been happening in the city. And I'm from LA, but I wasn't thinking about real estate as a profession myself. And so when you get more ingrained in it, you realize, oh, wow, there's all of these other things happening other than just four
Really?
events, four events coming into the city. Yes, there's like a whole host of things that are leading up into this. So thank you for painting the picture, setting the scene. I would definitely say AREP for me has been just an opportunity to step up and do things that I've always wanted to do, but didn't have a vehicle to do it in. And I can tell you that working with you has given me an opportunity to just try things and be more experimental and also just have a good time while you're doing it.
I was
I
going to
mean,
say that we have fun.
we have fun.
Kiki.
We do. And I think you and we enjoy it because we realize that if this organization weren't here, this would look different.
Mhm. Mhm. Listen, when we had Mayor Bass come out, she came out twice last year. When she came out to the second meeting where the Urban Land Institute had their fall meeting in LA, and we had 300 people in Fixins, and ARAP pulled together a consortium of commercial real estate orgs. And so in my exchange with Mayor Bass, and I reminded her, she said to us, I need this organization behind me. That was a defining moment for me. That was a defining moment for me when it became, okay, listen, it's bigger than just having wine and cheese and listening to jazz, which we did for many years, which was fun. But it's really about creating opportunity and creating being a part of the solution. It's as simple as that. And by being a part of the solution, guess what, Garland? And you know this, it's created opportunities for so many folks, right? We have over 300. What are we at now since that last event
Yeah.
last week?
Like almost 350 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I haven't looked, but yeah, if you look back on that surge in that growth, I credit you, Garland. Listen, you're on the phone, you're on the horn, you're networking with the people. I can feel 350 people. I can feel the force of a 350 person organization. I'm sure you can as well. Check your inbox probably right now. But the servant leadership that you and I think we're so aligned in serving our members and seeing we're directing a lot of traffic, right? We're seeing opportunities every day. So when we talk about what's happening in our communities, it's bigger than it's more than just housing. It's retail, it's other sectors, it's studio space, it's industrial, because all of those sectors have to complement the transformation that's happening within our communities. But the testimonials that we receive from our members that demonstrate the effectiveness of this organization. It's so simple. We've provided space and opportunity, but we don't see it as work, Garland. You and I have this conversation all the time. It's not work for us. It's service.
Yeah. We also talk about third spaces. You want to talk about third spaces?
Yes, that's my new favorite word. Thanks to you. Didn't know about third, didn't know that we had created a third space because didn't know what third space was until we had a couple months ago. We have these things called member-led meetups as Garland, and that's so coined by Garland and started by Garland. And so what happens is, so we've had 17 events this year. 14 have been led by our members. Again, we're about amplifying and providing opportunities for our members to shine. So sometimes it's their very first time being able to present. This is a safe space. You should be able to speak, be on a panel, present in this space with us. And so we've provided a lot of opportunities for that. But so real quick story. So the last event that we had prior to this big one last week at Cosm was a studio, a Black-owned studio called Undercurrent XR Studios. And so there was a panel of AAREP members who are active in the tech and media space. And so the panel was fantastic. An outcome of that conversation was a discussion around third space for people of color, for Black people. Historically, ancestrally, we know we're tribal, but historically here started like in churches, started in bowling clubs. Depending on how old you are, you'll remember organizations, Greek letter organizations. Those are all very important third spaces. And you could probably elaborate on this more, Garland. AAREP has become that third space. We are more than just, we've become that space where people can grow, where people feel safe, where people come to community. And listen, we've accepted people come to socialize.
Yeah.
And
I
we're
mean,
okay.
you can't do real estate without networking and talking. And honestly, we just put people in a room sometimes that you have to give time for the chatter, the hanging out, the how are you, the what's going on with the deals. That conversation is going to happen if you don't make space for it or not. So you might as well just give space for it. I think what's been so cool about creating a third space has been realizing that it doesn't have to look like everyone else's trade org or look like an overly professional space. People are going to show up after work. They're going to drive from one side of town to the next, which a drive in LA is a commitment. It is saying I want to be there because people don't want to drive anywhere. So if they decide to drive, it means I have decided this is something important to me.
Mhm.
And so when you create these spaces, at least for me, when I think about it, is what would I like to go to? What would be interesting for me to attend? And then hearing from people, I want a DJ instead of a band or instead of a jazz quartet. Remember, we got that feedback and we were like, a DJ? Okay, who do we know? And then we asked more members and they were like, oh, this DJ's. So we've been, I think, evolving. And I think that's important to talk about is as you continue to create things, you have to receive feedback and be prepared to institute it and make it your own. Don't be afraid to make it a real space for your people. And I think we've done a really great job of that. We also have some awesome board members that tell us, yeah, you don't want to do that. You want to do this.
You want to
Uh,
go traveling. You don't want to go to that other place. Oh, we want to go.
so we've I think we're really good at making sure that we're listening and we're keeping our ear to everything because you can't just only do what you want to do. And so it's been, I think, fun with making each event a little something. And then members coming and saying they want to do something and saying, wouldn't it be great if? And I'm like, wouldn't it be great if? And wouldn't you like to be the person to make that happen? Because you're clearly having a vision about what you want this to be. And so we've been, I think, really good at keeping our finger on the pulse, as you say, of what people are wanting and making sure that we're providing space and opportunity for that to happen. If you had to, I'd say, talk about how you, because I talk about this with people all the time, is your day job is your day job. And then when you become a part of a trade org or create a third space with another org, sometimes people turn it off. They think, oh, it's a different space. I'm going to do something different. I think you and I have really been clear that we're actually bringing the skills and the strengths we have to the next thing and focusing on how we can do those things in the other spaces. What are the skills, the relationships, things that you have leveraged from one space, your professional, space? And then now I'd say we're blurring them. I don't even think we think of them compartmentalized in that way.
Mhm, mhm. No, that's and listen, it all played out for me a week and a half ago when the Sentinel dropped that article. And so the Sentinel did an article, I forget, it was like Kimberly Brown's leadership, legacy, and impact in Los Angeles. What that did also is that, so I posted it on LinkedIn. The comments were included people through my 35-year journey in commercial real estate. There were people that advocated for me since the very beginning. There were some people that showed up in the comments that have watched my 35 career, and typically, I'll be honest with you, they're white men because just that's just the function of the industry, the capital markets, and so these were people that I've often always found favor with, and they pick up the phone and advocate for me. When I moved to New York, folks would make phone calls. I've got Kim Brown's coming to New York. Okay, we'd like to get her. It really, when I look at it, it's that advocacy that put me in a position. It's that influence that gave me influence, gave me connections, and gave me access. And so we often say, for example, my roots are in the big brokerage firms and in operations, but we often say that brokerage was founded on developers giving their friends' kids jobs. That's just nepotism, whether that's folklore, whether that's true. There's some elements of that that we can see play out. We, as an ecosystem, and which includes AAREP LA and some other trade orgs, but we can do that as well. So we've reached that point where we're doing that. So I look at all of those and I could shout them out. I could name names right now, from Mylan Weiss at Real Tech Development, from John Combs, who just recently sold his firm to River Rock, Jody Police with Jerry. I can look at all of these folks that I can still pick up the phone to this day. And those relationships I've just created out. So where I'm going with this is that's what I know. And that's what I know works. So I'm doing that. And so that's just how it's a natural function. I'm constantly making phone calls, connecting dots. I recognize my call gets answered, right? I can contact the leaders, the C-suite leaders of many of these commercial real estate institutions and brokerage firms. And so particularly now, because they've all got interest in investment in our communities. And then ARAP looks like a conduit to those opportunities. But that same advocacy, that's just who I am. I'm a sponsor. Like, I don't even tell folks I'm really not even a mentor. I'm more of a sponsor, right? And so my leadership is defined by my sponsorship, just about. It's just creating opportunities, giving folks access to resources. I've got a young fellow that came to the first event last week himself, and so he's got a hotel deal he dropped in my box. Okay, listen, I'll give you some tips. I'll maybe make an introduction for you, see what you can do with that particular deal. It's just a function. You and I often talk about how much we can get done on our phones.
Oh, yeah, we can. What she's not telling everybody though is she's like this everywhere. So she's doing this in her business, hip, that's like normal, but you do it, I say in AREP, you do it in your personal, like you're doing this connecting and sponsorship and helping people connect dots and meet other people. And that's just, I think you don't even probably notice it anymore because you're just doing it. Let me just see what I can do. Or, oh, you need, oh, let me. And I think you don't find enough people anymore like that because there's just everyone wants to keep something for themselves or just feels what's mine is mine. And I think what you have demonstrated is that honestly, like sharing doesn't take anything away from you. And
It ends
honestly,
actually. Yeah.
the rising tide lifts all boats. Let's do this together. And I think that's the spirit that we put in AREP as well. I can definitely say that your relationships, I know for a fact, like you said, they pick up the phone for you for sure. So when things happen and it's time to get on the horn with somebody, you know how to, oh, let's think about who, oh, let's, and that is solid gold, honestly.
And you come out of some of the same shops that we're affiliated with, so you understand the course of how to make things happen. It really is relationship driven. It just is, right? And I get there's a degree of a knack to know how to effectively leverage your relationships. But you just said something that folks just I can't say enough of. We've had a couple of mantras in AREP, hashtag lifting as we climb, right? Where we're adopting that from the Black suffrage movement, where there's so many, we're just trying to demonstrate to folks, like you said, a rising tide lifts all boats. What I love about what I saw last week, listen, we had a celebration at Cosm, folks, that was the talk of the town. Yes, it was a party, and yes, we were wobbling and cupid shuffling and doing all the things. And but thank you, Uncle Nearest, for being our product sponsor. But I'm still hearing about deals that got done. Folks are like, that space of 160 people on their rooftop deck in Inglewood at Cosm's new venue, that space was so powerful. Folks were networking, folks were introducing what it's the spirit of who we are and what we do. And guess what? Garland, this week we're hearing of outcomes. We're
Yeah.
hearing about young people finding the bartender, Garland, at
Oh, I
Cosm.
know. I know. There's a bartender that was like, "Oh, wait, what's going on the rooftop? Oh, I'm trying to get into this and I'm trying to do that. Do you think I can connect with someone there?" She sent messages to us and in our DMs and LinkedIn to connect with us to find out what she's trying to get an internship. What can she do? And this is the stuff that I think is always when I talk about reimagining community, this is what it looks like for me is it doesn't always have to be in a specific space with a specific type of anything. Like it means how are we showing up for each other? How are we helping each other? What are the things that we're able to do with the the currency, the capital that we have? And I think oftentimes we don't think about that enough.
Because we're not trained to, I got a whole view on that. Traditionally, we're just not. So listen, let's have some real conversation
Let's
here.
have some real conversation. That's what we're here to have.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have these real conversations all the time. Land use is so important. People don't even recognize because you're going about your business, right? Unless you're in land use or in real estate, you don't necessarily recognize how important, vitally important land use is to generational wealth, to community building, to all of the things. Areba Martin, a good friend of mine, she just won her case for the people of Palm Springs to get. When you talk about George Fatherly, another member of ARAP, won a case at Bruce's Beach a couple years ago. When you talk about reparations or restorative justice, you got me on the soapbox. Folks are just thinking, oh, those are just people that want to pay it. No. What ends up happening is when that land was taken from a group, the impact of that loss in wealth and generational wealth and community empowerment, the it
Yeah.
is tremendous. It's tremendous on so many levels, tangible and intangible. So obviously economic. If you look at a small piece of land that may have been a family may have been displaced on, and maybe worth a couple $1,000,000 to this day, right? And so all of that wealth didn't get passed. So I say all that to say that Black people traditionally, and again, it's how we came here, the whole thing, don't have, we're behind. There's that meme that shows like a race, and then here's the race. And so we're behind
The
uh,
line.
a number of paces, right? We're now making good strides. And for the first time in my 30 some our career, we've got this level of influence, right? Where we can put an event together like last week. And guess what? That venue is essentially self-sustaining. Everything you need was in that room to get a deal done, to get folks hired, to create opportunity for wealth building in Black communities. And so that's just an important aspect of, not that we're intentionally setting out to do all these things. These are just, we're so simple. Garland, you know that. We're so
Yeah.
simple. These are just, you couldn't have told us, Garland, 4 years ago
No,
that we'd be seeing these outcomes, right? And
no.
understanding, to the extent, understanding our impact to the extent that we do now. Not saying that we are the solution, but we have to be a part of that. We've got to be an integral part of the solution.
No, I 100% agree. Yeah,
Can I say one more thing, Garland?
yes,
Quote
let's
John
go.
Lewis. Quote John Lewis. Probably should have closed with this. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? That's AAREP. There is no other. There are a number, and I'm not going to discredit any other groups out there naturally around Southern California, but everybody's in a lane. We are the institutional grade, private equity, commercial real estate, corporate trained folks. If we're not here, present, then who's there? And
Yes.
so that's how we're viewed by elected officials. That's how we're viewed by the other trade orgs. Every other trade org, I know all their leaders, they've all come to us. Every single last one of them.
Yeah. No, I do know that we have been, at least how I see AREP is, we've all been in everyone else's thing and in our respective orgs. And so to now have a space where we can do us and be us, for us, by us exclusively, it feels very good. And I think that's why people love coming and participating and being engaged, because there hasn't been a space like this. When I started, and I haven't been around as long, but I was in the recruiting on the people side. And I, up until then, prior to commercial real estate, I'd been in very, I'd say, roles where there's a little bit of everyone represented. And I think my first time in an office in commercial real estate in LA, and I was like, wait, where's everybody that makes up LA? This is really odd. But I was like, let me learn, see what this is about. And being able to, I think, recruit and bring people into an organization, I saw that as an opportunity to change the face of what the organization looked like, or at least get a variety of, I'd say, stakeholders, perspectives, backgrounds into a room. And so I made it something for my own self, like nothing that was mandated or required by anybody as a KPI, just my own KPI, my personal KPI. I was doing DEI before it was DEI. And so when I found a rep, I was like, oh, so we are in this industry. We just aren't all in the same types of things, where it's a pie and there's different people in different parts of the pie. And I kept thinking, what if I could grow this pie? What if I could make this pie a bigger pie, so that when we're out, no matter where we are, we can work together and know that we have other people? Because what I know is the mentorship, the sponsorship, having someone who can relate to your experience. This is what keeps you going in anything. This is also lets you know that you can do it. Like, oh, what, she's doing it, I can do it too. And you just need to, I think, have those spaces, because you know that you can do it, but it's something else when you're with people who really understand what it means to have the same experiences, challenges, accomplishments, all of the things. And I see it when our members get together. They're like, they just, it's like a collective breath and sigh when they come in.
Mhm,
They take off the armor of whatever they've had to be dealing with,
mhm,
and they just enjoy. being able to do the things that make, I'd say, Black lives rich. It's liberation. It's a lot of just, and so I know that AREP has helped me to see my own. You can do this.
That's right.
You can try some things. Why don't you? And so I don't know that I would be getting on this venture, doing all of these things. And I think AREP has definitely been a huge part of me saying, you need to be doing more of this. This is actually what you enjoy doing. And so I just want to just thank you for going with me on this journey because it's been a journey.
No, I've seen it for you, and particularly this year, right? And I think that it started with when we were invited to participate in the Leimert Park charrette. And so that experience opened up a number of other opportunities and a number of pathways in how that particular community within South LA, which again is on the radar because of the Metro line, Metro's investment there, the rich history, the upcoming mega events, the future games, ecotourism, driving ecotourism there. And so I think that I saw that, Garland, for you, and just was excited to see that there was a space and a pathway for you to leverage and get involved there and make a difference in that regard. But that's just an example. And what it is, at the end of the day, is really just empowerment. Folks are empowered. Listen, we've seen the explosion of young people, because that's what my group calls them. AREP brought the young people. That's what we heard at the Leimert Park charrette, right? I've seen the explosion. We have over 300, some are 350 members. We've got 1,400 folks on our listserv. Listen, when we started, there was 12 of us at Spaghettini meeting for wine, of course, listening to jazz many years ago. The explosion of young people entering the chat. We didn't have that. We didn't have James Doherty, one of our board members. James was like, he made a post. He was like, I wish I had all of this when I was coming up. Happy to be a resource. But man, if the young people don't understand, hoping that they're not taking it for granted, my daughter included, who's following in dear mom's footsteps, as many of we're getting our kids on there too, Garland, right?
Yeah, no, we're definitely doing that. But I think even feeling like that's like, I need to do this for, it's understanding the legacy, the community building, all of what it means, I think is everything. So I'm just so glad you're doing this because we have these little conversations all the time. And so to be able to do it now really is really great. What is next for you, AREP? You're still within us, even though you're moving on as president, but as it relates to like, I think you've got a lot of new things on the horizon that you've been holding to yourself because you're trying to straddle all of the things you've got going. But this is your time to talk about what's next for you, goals that you have for yourself, things that you're doing.
Awesome. No, thank you. And again, never would have saw this here. I rolled out of, had a career in the corporate space. The last firm I worked for was Cushman & Wakefield, large global brokerage firm. It was becoming apparent. This was at the end of 2022. It was becoming, Cushman loved my brand ambassadorship, right? And particularly back when DEI was in style. Catch that. But then it became apparent that I was being drawn into some things and some deals and some opportunities and some ambassadorship that, if I'm honest, was starting to create some potential compliance issues and what have you. And so there was a fork in the road. Either I continued down this corporate path, and listen, I had a fantastic career in the corporate space. So to walk away from that took some courage, but I was also being drawn. Also understanding that through my role, through my leadership at AAREP, take me like I was being drawn into being a part of the solution. And so left Cushman & Wakefield, had a whole different plan in mind, starting my own brokerage firm, which I did, was going down that path. And suddenly a couple of stars lined up. And so a prominent member in the community, a developer, she's so many things, Cherie Franklin, said to me, Kim, when are you starting your own fund? Wait, me? I socialize everybody else's deals. I'm a broker, right? She goes, no. And so that was a defining moment. Some other factors occurred, and that led to the creation of Housing Impact Partners with Cherie Franklin, who again is a prominent developer. We call her the godmother of commercial real estate in
She
Los
is.
Angeles. She is, you know that. And Carlton Jenkins, who so many folks know locally here. Carlton's legacy is in founding the first Black bank in the city of Los Angeles, and he's an investment banker currently. So the three of us bring very different yet complementary skill sets. So we've created a platform. We formed a platform called Housing Impact Partners. I will tell you, there's a lot. So we've been in the lab, we call it, for the past 2 years, had a lot of institutional interest, had a lot of private equity interest. We've got quite a few deals under that we are under our control at this point. Our whole strategy is, to sum it up here, our whole strategy is to drive private equity into deal flow. All of that development, or so much, I should say, of the development that we're seeing across this city is outside investment, right? We are a group. And so we are a group active. We are from the community, activating on the ground. We're seeing it through a whole different lens. We've got the attention of the nonprofits. We have 5 nonprofit partners. We're another one, a large nonprofit we're actually signing with today. CRCD Partners, Sanctuary of Hope, LA Metropolitan Churches. Those are all our nonprofit partners that can co-invest and provide services into our deals, but they're housing deals, housing impact partners. And so what our whole strategy at the end of the day is around preserving affordability in this city with a
Wow.
focus on dense areas like South LA. Obviously, we're in Koreatown, we're in Pico Union West, like some of the other areas around downtown LA. Listen, I was on Skid Row, and you can stop me, Garland, because I can get. Listen, I toured one of our nonprofits. I'll mention, we're not, maybe I won't, well, not quite under contract, but they're very prominent in the city, a large $90 million nonprofit. And so, huge presence on Skid Row. Met their CEO. They've been courting us for the past 6 months. Met their CEO. They want to co-invest alongside us into deals around the city. Met their CEO, had lunch on Monday, gave us a tour of their facilities in Skid Row. Garland, and I told you this, Garland, I was struck. The majority of the folks on Skid Row are Black. The vast majority, right? And so looking at now, it resonates with me when I heard Mayor Bass say, listen, I can't stand to see people on the street, and particularly folks that are disproportionately represented on the streets, which are traditionally people of color for systemic reasons, which we don't have enough time to talk about that whole why that is. But nevertheless, very sobering. It really punctuates for us. Yes, it's an investment and development platform, but we're not just about taking out all. Listen, if you're an investor and your return requirement is 20%, we're not the group for you, because we are about giving up we understand you have to make money as an investor, but we are about preserving affordability for our people. So the deals that we do are very intentional. One, have to have an element of humanity around it. So much of this new construction that you're seeing that's going up is just that. It's just Kleenex boxes, is what we call it. Just no thought around the people that go into that need this housing. And so we've got just a different lens on it. So we're about, if we're acquiring buildings, and some of these buildings, we're about the degree of constructability, the quality of the construction. Listen, we're talking lending libraries, we're talking internet cafes in the lobby, we're talking rooftop space, greenery, we're talking all the things that we know, because we know who's disproportionately affected and we're representing those folks, in addition to preserving the affordability. So humanity and housing, remember that.
Okay. So we're going to switch gears. How are you reimagining your place in the community today?
Honestly, it's been reimagined for me. It's just how I've been drawn into just the prominence of the organization under my leadership, the folks from within the community that see my leadership. And this isn't just across LA, this is around Southern California. And so I see myself as an advocate. Honestly, I'm advocating for our communities. I'm advocating for the intersection of commercial real estate in our communities because of how important everything starts with land use. And so to be in this position, to be an advocate moving forward, I got to be grassroots. I'm not running for office. I'm not going into elected office. Like I got to be grassroots. And most elected officials that know me know I have to fly freely to be as effective as I can be. So that's where I see myself headed next is just in pure advocacy around the matters that are most impacting our communities, particularly as they intersect commercial real estate.
A song that instantly brings you back to the feeling of being connected and being in community, and why?
Ooh, ooh, ooh. And actually, I should have thought this through because oftentimes I'm active on socials, which most people know, also active on Instagram. So if you notice, like I'm active on stories. So I'll create moments. And so when I'm selecting music for those moments, it has to be music that resonates for me. There's a gospel song by Hezekiah Walker called Grateful, right? And so that's a song that's really driving me now because I am so grateful. I am grateful to be a servant, right? At its core. And I'm grateful to be in this position to affect some change. There's a lot of other songs in my archives on all of mine, but gratitude, honestly, is just where I'm at right now. It's just where I'm at. The business comes and the business is going to come, and all that's great. But just recognizing the opportunity and recognizing the responsibility.
Okay. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for sharing all of your not only experiences, wisdom, excitement about all the things to come. I'm just so happy to start this with you. So you're going to be one of my, I'd say, the guests that I start and kick this off with. So I'm just so happy to have you here today. And I look forward to just seeing what else you do and what other things are going to be coming your way. So thank you so much.
Stay tuned. And Garland, thank you. Listen, I appreciate you so much. We have these conversations all the time. You've been a fantastic partner at all. It doesn't stop here. I'm actually president emeritus of AAREP, so I'll still advocate and represent the organization in certain spaces. But just bravo to you, Garland. I've watched you. I've seen the things that have come to you. Thank you for your leadership. And then you're moving into executive leadership in AAREP LA, which I think is just incredibly important. You've earned it. The impact that you're going to make is tremendous. And this was fun. And thank you for having me.
If this conversation moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because every week we're bringing you more stories of real transformation. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and tag the folks in your circle who need to hear this. Want to go deeper? Sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. Now is the time. Are you in?